Where are the worst places to live in the US? It's no secret that some states are faring better than others, but today we'll reveal which states are going downhill and fast. To avoid an opinionated list for the most part, we'll take a look at the most recent quality of life ratings and other considerations published by reputable sources to get a clear picture of who truly is the worst of the worst. Think you know which states will make the list? It might not be as clear as you'd think. So, which states have the worst year ahead? Let's take a look and find out. Number 10. Nevada. With a rank of 44th overall as a place to raise a family, Nevada emerges as a clearly declining state. Ranking worst in socioeconomics and 49th in both education and childcare and affordability, Nevada has a long way to go to trend towards being a generally improving state. Nevada also comes in 45th for health and safety, which doesn't look great for the Silver State. According to one metric, as of 2024, Nevada is the worst off nationally in terms of the unemployment rate. Perhaps unsurprisingly, Nevada also struggles in terms of economic strength and quality of education. Drug use in Nevada is another reason for the Silver State's placement on the list. Nevada falls at 8th in the nation for drug use. Clearly, there's been a lot causing Nevada to decline in recent years. Nevada's economy is also among the most inequitable and regressive in the nation. The level of tax disparity is 5th highest in the nation, with Nevada's poorest residents being taxed at effective rates more than 4 times higher than its wealthiest residents. The top 1% of earners in Nevada pay just 2.8% of their income on taxes, while the poorest 20% of earners pay 11.9%. Middle-income families in the middle 60% of the income scale pay about 8.4% of their income on taxes, which is essentially 3 times higher than the effective rate paid by the wealthiest in the nation. In Nevada, with no personal income tax, most of the funds come from sales and excise tax. As you can tell, Nevada's poor outlook is largely tied to its struggling economy and workforce. The declining tourism seen in Nevada in recent years also poses a risk to the state's economy. Considered the entertainment capital of the world by some, Nevada attracts millions of visitors each year, especially in places like Las Vegas and Reno. In 2022, the more than 38 million visitors to Nevada generated more than $940 million in revenue. Some call tourism the lifeblood of the state economy. The COVID-19 pandemic had catastrophic economic consequences for Nevada, where tourism still is not quite at pre-pandemic levels. Beyond the lasting effects of the pandemic, inflation threatens the economy in Nevada more than almost any other state. Inflation, which can be considered a tax on the working class, drives up the costs associated with food, travel, transportation, and energy, which can consume wages and drive many working-class families into poverty. According to a Census Bureau report, energy and food costs are the primary drivers of the rising impacts of inflation in Nevada, and 47% of families in the Silver State reported that they struggle to pay household expenses. As a state so dependent on tourism and consumer spending, the inaccessibility of much Nevada has to offer, especially with rising inflation, may mean trouble for the state in the years ahead. Travel to Nevada is just one aspect of tourism that has become prohibitively expensive in the state, as airline tickets are currently outpacing the rate of inflation by 25% and are projected to continue rising in the years to come. Not only is tourism taking a hit in Nevada, but the environmental situation in the Silver State is also struggling due to climate change. One major issue is water scarcity, as Lake Mead, a major source of water in Nevada, has been under a water shortage for months now. As of January 2024, Lake Mead moved from a Tier 2 to a Tier 1 shortage after a very wet winter, but water in Nevada is still in short supply. Clearly, despite small improvements, Nevada finds itself in a sticky situation moving forward, much like our next state that's facing some major problems. Alaska. Alaska is famed for its massive wilderness reserves, cold weather, and natural beauty. It's also famed for its oil industry. Alaska's economy relies heavily on oil as a major export of the state, as it produces and sells billions of barrels of oil annually. According to one projection, oil prices may suffer in 2024, with a projected decline of $8 per barrel compared with the Department of Revenue's forecast from fall of 2022. The state is also expected to have decreased oil production at a projected rate of 7,200 fewer barrels of oil each day. This could reduce the state's unrestricted general fund revenue by $679 million this year. All this oil production has and will continue to have catastrophic effects in the last frontier. As changes in ocean conditions, permafrost, air temperatures, sea ice, and precipitation become more prominent as a result of the changing climate, Alaska's infrastructure is likely to suffer, especially in rural areas. The livelihoods of Alaskan people may be seriously threatened in the coming year and beyond, contributing to the collapse of major fisheries, undermining existing jobs and indigenous ways of life, impacting agriculture and mariculture industries, and creating job insecurity. Alaska's education system also doesn't have a positive outlook. In fact, ranked 46th in education, Alaska has just 11 or 17.2% of its 64 ranked schools falling in the top 25% of schools in the nation. Alaska's decline is not limited to its poor education system, however. Its population has been struggling for years now. Though Alaska's population has mostly increased by some amount each year, the rate of change has been stagnant since 1995. Beyond this, the state has experienced school closures as a result of declining school-age residents and enrollment. This may be related to the impacts of the COVID-19 pandemic. Clearly, the aftermath of the pandemic continues to adversely impact Alaska's population. Not only that, but the rate of natural increases in population, that is, the births in Alaska, recently reached the lowest they have been since the 1950s. The age of the average Alaskan has also risen, with older adults over the age of 71 years old are now at an all-time high, making up over 7% of the state's population. Alaska is also rated as the 39th best state in the country for families, which, while not the worst, isn't something to brag about. In fact, one study ranked Alaska as the worst nationwide in terms of both quality of life and climate and weather. Alaska also comes in at 42nd in the country for unemployment and 40th for safety and crime rates. With so many factors working against the state, it's clear Alaska is on the decline. Would you dare to move to Alaska? Coming in next, New Mexico. New Mexico is considered the worst state in the country to raise a family, which doesn't look positive for the state's prognosis right off the bat. New Mexico is ranked 37th in the country in terms of family fun and 49th for health and safety. New Mexico is ranked worst in the country for crime rates and safety according to another ranking. The Land of Enchantment is also ranked 46th for socioeconomic rank. None of these factors are favorable for an improvement in New Mexico in the years ahead. New Mexico's employment and workforce development don't have a positive outlook in the upcoming year either. New Mexico was recently said to have 116,000 fewer workers than the national average for a state's workforce participation. Since 2010, an estimated 20,000 workers have left the state of New Mexico and have not been replaced. In terms of economics, New Mexico clearly doesn't fare too well, and this may only continue to decline in the years ahead. For several years in a row, New Mexico was among the top 3 states with the highest poverty rates. New Mexico also had the 3rd highest child poverty rate in the nation, with 23.9% of children living in poverty, and the 3rd highest senior poverty rate at 12.8% in 2021. Not only that, but the state is considered to be among the worst in terms of education and childcare. One rating scale ranks New Mexico as the 47th in quality of education. In fact, New Mexico is thought to be one of the worst in terms of student standardized test scores, with New Mexico students on average scoring at or near the bottom. While this isn't a great metric for measuring all learning and education quality, the fact that New Mexico students overall have shown minimal improvement in proficiency since 1998 is not promising for the future of education in the Land of Enchantment. The high rates of poverty and low levels of proficiency within the education system of New Mexico are, perhaps unsurprisingly, linked. As of 2021, 28% of under age 5 live in poverty, and 25% of children under 18 live in poverty. At the same time, 76% of fourth graders, that is nearly 3/4 of New Mexican fourth graders, and 79% of eighth graders were not proficient in reading at their grade level. Furthermore, over a quarter of high school students in the Land of Enchantment do not graduate on time, and 12% of teenage children are not in school or working. What's more, almost a third of adults in the state read at the level of a 5 to 7-year-old, though this number may be impacted by the number of immigrants in the state. Clearly, the deep-rooted generational impacts of poverty are significant in New Mexico. Beyond academics and income, drug use is another issue that plagues the state of New Mexico. Based on 20 metrics, including overdose rates and employee drug testing laws, New Mexico actually is the worst ranked for drug use. Surprisingly enough, drugs and alcohol can be at least partially responsible for all the 10 leading causes of death in the Land of Enchantment. This isn't to say that drug use definitively results in all of the leading causes of death, but they could be tied to drug use and alcohol use. For instance, chronic liver disease, cirrhosis, unintentional injury, and suicide may all be related to substance abuse, as can death from chronic respiratory diseases and heart diseases. Not only that, but New Mexico has one of the highest alcohol-related death rates in the nation. As of 2007, the economic cost of alcohol abuse in New Mexico cost the state more than $2.8 billion, including lost productivity due to illness and death, healthcare expenses, social welfare costs, and more. Clearly, New Mexico is unlikely to improve soon, but just wait until you hear which state is next. Arkansas. Another state fighting to stay afloat is Arkansas, also called the natural state. In recent years, Arkansas has been repeatedly reported to be one of the states with the highest rates of income inequality nationwide. In fact, studies show that Arkansas's richest residents, the top 5% of households, have average incomes that are 15 times greater than the bottom 20% of households and 5 times larger than the middle 20% of households. Not only that, without counting capital gains, the top 5% of Arkansas households reportedly receive 19% of the overall state's income. To illustrate that in dollars, the average income of the richest 5% is an estimated $259,930, while the poorest 20% average comes in at just $17,879. What's more, Arkansas has seen growing inequality since 1979, as the top 1% has seen income growth of 110%, while other households have had, on average, a growth of just 9% since 1979. This inequity extends to food insecurity as well. In Arkansas, there are an estimated 467,550 people currently facing hunger, of which 134,690 are children. That's 1 in 6 people facing hunger in Arkansas, and 1 in 5 children. In total, to meet the food needs of people facing hunger in Arkansas, those experiencing food insecurity would need a collective $262 million each year to meet their needs. One of the largest issues plaguing Arkansas has been tied to a rise in illegal drug use in the state as well. The state has one of the highest rates of violent crime in the United States, according to the FBI. In fact, by one rating system, considering several metrics like drug testing and overdose rates, Arkansas comes in at 7th in the nation. Arkansas's governor, Sarah Huckabee Sanders, has blamed crime in Arkansas on too relaxed penalties and prison overcrowding that has led to the release of some violent offenders before the end of their sentences. Health in Arkansas is a serious issue as well, as it's ranked 46th in the nation to raise a family in. At third worst in family fun and 42nd overall in health and safety, Arkansas is clearly not a place you want to be with your family in the coming year. There's a serious lack of access to healthcare in Arkansas as well, with, for instance, just 42 dentists for every 100,000 residents. Unfortunately, Arkansas also struggles from the brain drain, which is a phenomenon in which college students tend to migrate out of the state after graduation. An estimated 21% more of four-year college graduates leave Arkansas than remain, with most going to Texas, Tennessee, and Missouri. Retaining college graduates would improve the state's long-term economic well-being and would attract talent to its growing industries, which could be key to improving Arkansas's standing in the future. Unfortunately, with no indication of improvement this year, Arkansas remains on this list as one place projected to decline. But while this next state is known for its natural beauty, it's also known for its horribly low rankings. Is the beauty worth the trade-offs? Louisiana. Now heading to the Deep South, another declining state is Louisiana. Louisiana ranked 45th in the nation for families, while coming in at 46th for both health and safety and education and childcare. Louisiana's location along the southern coast has already subjected it to catastrophic loss as a result of tropical storms, like Hurricanes Katrina, Ida, Laura, and Rita in recent memory. Already since the start of 2024, Louisiana has been experiencing a property insurance crisis as hurricanes and storms have cost billions of dollars of catastrophe-related losses across the country. Some insurance agents suspect that property insurance in the state will improve as the year goes on. Still, with the constant threat of hurricanes and storms causing serious property damage in the Pelican State, the forecast in Louisiana doesn't look all that great. With declining temperatures and lesser rainfall associated in recent years, Louisiana's crawfish industry, which is significant for the state, may be seriously jeopardized. When there was recently an Arctic freeze that led to plummeting temperatures, bursting pipes, and impacted plumbing in Louisiana, the crawfish were too cold to move around, look for food, and end up in crawfish traps. Economically, the state has suffered as a result of the property damage, environmental disasters, and other factors impacting Louisiana in recent years. Louisiana is ranked as having the 47th strongest economy in the nation, outranking just a few other states. The state also ranks 48th in quality of education and 49th in safety and crime rates, which are undoubtedly tied to Louisiana's struggling economy. Childcare is an especially important issue related to Louisiana's decline. With only 76 licensed childcare facilities in a state consisting of 4.6 million people, quality of life and childcare are delicately intertwined in Louisiana. Based on data related to the standard of healthcare, job openings based on population, average real estate prices, salaries, and rates of violent crime, Louisiana is ranked as the overall fourth worst state to move to. Louisiana also had the second worst healthcare of all the worst-ranked states, according to the study. Not only that, but the state had the seventh lowest salary of all states, with an average annual salary just south of $51,000. Finding work in the first place can often be really difficult. In fact, one rating ranks Louisiana as seventh worst to find work in the United States. Beyond this, Louisiana is especially known for high crime rates, as high as 155,000 crimes per year, despite a moderate-sized population. The Pelican State's crime rate is as high as 33 crimes per 1,000 residents, or 29 crimes per square mile, compared with the national crime rate of 23.28 crimes per 1,000 residents. Not only that, but violent crime rates have unfortunately increased in the past few years. Some of the most prevalent crimes in Louisiana include organized crime, theft, and more. In New Orleans in particular, tourism-related crimes, including prostitution and DUIs, are more common. Rural areas don't fare much better. Louisiana also has very high crime rates in some of its small towns. Beyond this, Louisiana ranks fourth in the nation for its drug use problems. Perhaps for some of us, though, the good food and southern hospitality are enough to save this state. Unfortunately, this next state, and the rest of the list for that matter, can't make similar claims. Kentucky. One major issue for Kentucky's outlook is that it's particularly difficult to find work in the state. In fact, one rating system estimates that Kentucky is the 9th worst state to find work in the entire United States. Not only that, but the Bluegrass State is considered to be 36th in the country to raise a family in. Kentucky fares especially poorly in terms of family fun and socioeconomic status, where the state is ranked 44th and 40th respectively overall. In fact, Kentucky is said to have the 42nd worst unemployment rate in the nation, and Kentucky's economy is 44th strongest in the United States, making the future of its economy look bleak. Kentucky was tied for the 26th worst schools in the country. Only 49 of Kentucky's 225 schools were ranked in the top quartile of schools in the country. Further, the quality of life in Kentucky is said to be 46th out of the 50 states in the US. None of this looks especially promising for the future of Kentucky. Kentucky is a state that is increasingly overwhelmed by smoking, obesity, and other public health concerns. It has the 6th highest rate of obesity in the nation, with a whopping 48.78% of its population being obese. Not only that, but Kentucky is known for its tobacco problem. 37.8% of cancer deaths in the Bluegrass State are attributable to smoking. With more than 17% of Kentucky adults smoking, nearly 5% of high school students smoking, and about 22% of high schoolers using e-cigarettes. These rates are much higher than those nationally, as just 11.5% of adults smoke nationally, less than 2% of high schoolers smoke on average, and an estimated 10% of high school students use e-cigarettes. Annually, nearly 9,000 deaths result from people's own smoking. That's not even counting secondhand smoke deaths. One study found that smoking is more deadly and costs more lives than alcohol, HIV/AIDS, car accidents, illegal drugs, murder, and suicide combined. Thousands more die each year from tobacco-related causes aside from smoking, like fires caused by smoking and smokeless tobacco use. Clearly, health impacts in Kentucky are widespread and show no signs of stopping. In recent years, the coal industry has begun to collapse in Kentucky, threatening a once major part of the Kentucky economy. Coal is generally disappearing from the energy sector as more renewable and sustainable forms of energy have begun to replace such polluting materials. In Kentucky, climate change has led to warmer winter nights, wetter land, and even floods. Not only that, other natural disasters are expected to become more frequent, which may lead to further economic inequalities, food shortages, mass migration, and potentially armed conflict worldwide. It's clear that the outlook for the coal industry in Kentucky is grim. The agricultural sector is also struggling in the Bluegrass State. An expected $200 million decrease between 2022 and 2023 took place, stemming primarily from lower profits from a number of products, including corn, soybeans, dairy, and tobacco. Kentucky is expected to have lower agricultural exports in the coming year, so the future doesn't look so bright for Kentucky on that front either. But hold on, there are more states that might be even worse off than Kentucky. Mississippi. A state that has seen its position on these kinds of lists for far too long is Mississippi. The state lags well behind its counterparts when it comes to economy and fiscal stability, ranking last or second to last in the provided lists. That reality is further cemented by the fact the state was ranked 47th for job opportunities. So if you find yourself in an unstable economic situation, you're going to have a tough time finding a job to get you out of it. Citizens of this state especially took notice of this, as well as other factors during the COVID pandemic, with Mississippi experiencing a roughly 100,000 net population loss in 2020 and 2021. While the population has begun to increase since then, it still hasn't returned to pre-pandemic levels. Mississippi is also ranked 49th for families, making it a difficult place to raise a family for those who have to stay. But perhaps a silver lining for all of this bad news? Mississippi has some of the more affordable homes in America, an expected side effect of being in a state where no one wants to live. But we're not finished yet. There's still a couple more places to explore. New Jersey. Though many of the states on this list are in the south or southwest of the country, you may be surprised to find New Jersey among those states in decline. For one, New Jersey is seeing a decline in its overall population. With more residents migrating to different states, New Jersey is also experiencing brain drain like we mentioned earlier. Between July 1st, 2021 and July 1st of 2022, New Jersey lost more than 6,000 of its residents. In the state's largest counties, outmigration was the most prevalent. Essex, Bergen, and Passaic counties have all been especially struggling as a result of these new trends. Because New Jersey is so densely populated, its lack of affordability is thought to be driving these trends. Many people have opted to move to less dense and more affordable areas. The high rates of poverty in New Jersey cause the state to be considered one of the worst off in the nation as well, with respect to socioeconomic status. Furthermore, New Jersey is ranked as third worst in the United States in terms of affordability. The high property taxes of the Garden State have also proven to be a burden for New Jerseyans. The statewide average property tax bill in New Jersey jumped by over $200 in 2022, reaching $9,490 annually. Median property taxes in New Jersey were the highest in the nation at nearly $9,000, which is more than $2,500 greater than in Connecticut, which takes second place. These conditions don't seem particularly conducive to economic improvement. In fact, New Jersey will likely be among the states most likely to decline in the coming year. Not only that, but New Jersey has been experiencing a subtle increase in its prison populations, with a growth of 1.2% between 2021 and 2022. Before this, for the decade prior to this increase, New Jersey, like many other states in the United States, had been seeing a drop in incarceration rates. The economic decline seen in New Jersey's lack of affordability and generally low socioeconomic status of its residents impacts other areas of the state's well-being as well. For one, New Jersey's infrastructure and roads have been facing severe strains in recent years. In fact, New Jersey is thought to have the second worst roads in the entire United States. Over 36% of New Jersey roads are rated as being in poor condition, much higher than the 13.8% of roads in poor condition nationwide. With all of this, the prognosis for New Jersey in the years to come doesn't look all that great. Perhaps the most detrimental and concerning factor impacting New Jersey's ranking as one of the most likely states to decline is centered around the prevalence of environmental contamination and Superfund sites in New Jersey. In the Garden State, there are many Superfund sites, which are places that are so contaminated that they pose a risk to human and environmental health. These sites include manufacturing facilities, processing plants, incinerators, and landfills, and mining sites where hazardous waste has been left. Superfund sites pose a high risk to life expectancy and disproportionately affect low-income communities. For instance, one study found that a Superfund site in an area with an average income below the median, which is $52,580 for reference, may lower life expectancy by as much as 7 months. There are studies showing that residential proximity to Superfund sites is correlated with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma in men, as well as childhood acute lymphoblastic leukemia. Flooding can also transport these contaminants, which exacerbates the risks posed by Superfund sites given the likely increase in flooding in New Jersey that will accompany climate change. Currently, New Jersey is listed as having 115 Superfund sites on the Environmental Protection Agency's National Priorities List. This is the highest of all 50 U.S. states, despite New Jersey being the fourth smallest state. With so many risks to human health, the economy, and infrastructure, New Jersey deserves its spot on this list. But believe it or not, things can get worse, and we have a couple more states to visit. West Virginia. West Virginia easily makes the list of states in decline. It's ranked 48th in the country overall, making it one of the worst states in the nation for families. West Virginia is the worst in terms of family fun, and 44th in terms of affordability. West Virginia is also known for its unemployment rates and the difficulty of finding work in the United States. In fact, one ranking system suggested that West Virginia is the 10th most difficult place to find work in. West Virginia ranks number 2 in the country for its rates of drug use. In fact, the opioid crisis runs rampant in the Mountain State. According to the CDC, fatal overdoses resulted in the loss of more than 1,400 people's lives in West Virginia in 2021. The state leads the nation in overdose deaths. This is a serious pandemic that has resulted in tragic loss of life in the state. West Virginia also quite literally takes the cake in terms of the highest rates of obesity in the country, with a stunning 51% of its population living with obesity. This means that at least half of the state has a body mass index of 30 or more. Furthermore, West Virginia's education system does not appear to be one of the top ranked in the nation. Only 13.8% of schools in West Virginia are ranked in the top 25% of schools nationally. The Mountain State is rated as 44th in terms of education and childcare, so the outlook is not all that good. West Virginia's education system is unlikely to improve much in the coming year. Its coal industry has long been a central aspect of the economy in the Mountain State. The state has also remained committed to coal despite alternatives like natural gas, and utilities are reluctant to transition away from coal, which is bad for the environment, people's health, and people's wallets. Because of this, West Virginians have dealt with heightened energy costs, paying an average retail electricity price 5 times higher than the national average, where low-cost alternatives like natural gas or renewables may be more common in other states. Between 2008 and 2020, West Virginia did not take on new technological breakthroughs for energy, but instead developed 3 new coal plants that led to energy costs rising higher and faster than in any other state. Many coal miners in West Virginia have faced serious consequences beside a rising utility bill. Difficult to manage illnesses like bronchitis, black lung, and cancer have impacted many, while others have dealt with workplace injuries. Perhaps if West Virginia was to transition to a more sustainable and affordable energy system, it could be on the rise. However, appearing to be just as stuck in its ways as ever, West Virginia is another to add to the list of states declining in the new year, much like this next one, and our final one. Oklahoma. One of the states with the worst outlooks is Oklahoma. Rated as 43rd in terms of quality for families, Oklahoma receives especially poor marks for health and safety, coming in at 47th. The Sooner State is also considered the 38th best in terms of family fun, so the prospects aren't that positive there either. In Oklahoma, there is one of the highest rates of drug abuse, ranked at number 9 in the country, and the state has the nation's second highest rate of people without health insurance. The Sooner State banned abortion in 1910, which was one of the strictest in the nation. Oklahoma law also makes performing an abortion a felony, which is punishable by up to 5 years in prison unless the procedure is needed to preserve the mother's life. Beyond this, Oklahoma comes in 4th place in the nation for obesity rates, with 49.52% of its population living with some form of obesity. Generally, Oklahoma suffers some of the most concerning health issues. Only 2.3%, or 9, of Oklahoma's 396 ranked schools were rated in the top 25% of schools in the United States. In fact, Oklahoma was ranked as the worst state in the country for education. Its schools are one source of the state's decline. For one, after the federal government allowed free meals at schools for 2 years of the COVID pandemic, schools have recently readopted paid lunches in Oklahoma. Now, many families have accumulated a lunch debt that is unaffordable to navigate. All these facts together support Oklahoma's spot on this list of states that are currently in decline. Of course, it's important to remember that a state being on this list doesn't take away from the unique cultures, family life, or other non-data-based reasons that lead people to choose or even love living in one of these states. So while this list takes a look at the numbers, it doesn't mean it's impossible to be happy in any of these states. But we'd like to hear your thoughts. Are there any states that should or shouldn't have been on this list? Let us know in the comments below. And if this video interested you, feel free to check out the real reason why America needs the South, or what certain states are doing that are ending up driving people away. Thanks for watching, and as always, take care out there.